reputation for delivering well-made wines with great flavour intensity and drinkability. So use that. And I think there's an interesting connection here, especially with grapes which are coming from Europe's warmer south, where naturally they're riper and smoother wines. So I think Australia has a fantastic advantage, and it's something that I've noticed when I'm tasting Nera d'Avola, Negro Amaro, and Australia is bringing that winemaking skill to make fresher, brighter, less rustic examples than I have tasted from Italy. And one of my stars, Aglianico, riper tannins that let the fruit speak with no loss of savoury complexity. So I think Australia can compete really very favourably with European originals when you're thinking about those wines that have some of that warm climate softness and richness. What about motivation for buying Australian alternative varieties? I think the first one's interesting. People bought a wine because they were interested in the particular variety. So I think it's really important to understand what varieties are in fashion, being aware of trends, what's doing well on wine lists in the UK, where I think a lot of the Australian alternative varietal wines, especially with that slightly more focus on texture and structure, can perform very well. And as I mentioned before, for a long time, unoaked, aromatic whites are doing incredibly well on wine lists as an alternative to Sauvignon or Pinot Grigio. So forget Sauvignon, what about Albarino, Gruner Veltliner, Fiano, Godello, Vermentino, Verdejo, Acertico, all wine list staples in the UK, by the glass and by the bottle. And for reds, there's a real trend for soft and reasonably light, gluggable, drinkable reds that are adaptable to a variety of foods. So Gamay, Barbera, Sangiovese, Montepulciano, Tempranillo, Mencia, they all really fit with that. So there's definitely varieties to be thinking about and seeing a fit in the marketplace. And if they're reasonably low alcohol, so much the better. That knocks on the head another of the old lingering stereotypes. What's different today? Winemakers and viticulturists have never been better educated or more travelled. And let's face it, Australian winemakers and viticulturists are some of the best educated around the world. And you've got the Australian Wine Research Institute, great backup. The other thing, around the world in general, we know so much more about individual grape varieties and clones. And we know so much more about site, terroir if you will, including homocline matching, different soil types. So there's
suddenly things like Aglianico, Sagrantino, Montepulciano are hardly alternative, even Vermentino, they are for many every day. And so moving back to the Japan Sommeliers Association and talking about the stamp of place or provenance and how I think that's so important in terms of our future marketing or nature in which we market these varieties. For so many sommeliers, Aglianico is Torazi, Sagrantino is Montefalco. We're not talking about the variety alone or the varietal brand alone, we're talking about the regional brand. And provenance, location, location, location. It's so important. So again, let me reiterate, what are we offering with a point of difference here? One other point to consider too is that 70% of consumption in Japan is in the on-trade. So much of it is driven by the sommelier think tank. I think we need to embed these alternative varieties, calling them something different, and that will come over time, but embed these into a lifestyle message, not just a varietal branding type message, nor as the rather clumsy alternative varietal brand. To be successful, we brand these wines also based on merit, creativity, again, from the top down. This is something we're not known for, but we can start doing now. We need to promote our makers as integral to this lifestyle success story, and we need to talk about the places that sustain them, okay? And we need to get the location, meaning the variety, the place, the vineyard, and the story of the winemaker and his or her intrinsic connection to all of that right. And if we can do that, creative blending here and there, tweaking of the brand, alternative, I think we stand a very strong chance of great success. And I think, external perceptions of Australia or I should say Asian perceptions, or more succinctly I should say Japanese, Chinese and Hong Kong, especially in China, they're pretty positive.
I also think that the rays of the sun in Australia and New Zealand, thanks to lesser pollution and haze that one might see in the dirty and murky air of the Northern Hemisphere, have more of a direct path to the grape skin. And that's what provides wines with its flavors, colors, and aromas. And this may be another reason why these Vermentinos and Gruners from the Southern Hemisphere are so bright and juicy, and why they have achieved so modest success in the States. And these are really heady days for those who are exploring untraditional varietals in Australia. There's lots of interest. Wines are selling. Everybody's taste buds are excited with these new sensations. But I think there's a few words of caution to be noted. I know it's very competitive out there, and as a winery, who wants to compete in the big world out there, slogging it out on the Chardonnay and Cabernet segments of the market? Standing out and being different can bring rewards, awareness, success, popularity. Traditional varietals are popular for a reason. Large segments of the wine drinking population loves Chardonnay and Cabernet. There's a strong urge to go all in with these new varietals. But remember that you are also businesses that have to pay some bills. You must survive financially. Don't forget that classic wines are in demand, and they can pay the bills while keeping your brand in the public eye. And with those consumers who may not want to explore those wines because they're just not there yet. But what's really special about Australians' involvement with these different varietals is that sense of discovery and curiosity that's bringing you to the table as you explore these new grapes and wine styles. We may be a bit jaded in America because in addition to the explorations of the rich and varied tapestry that makes up our own country's viticultural heritage, most of us have already experienced many of the varietals you are just now investigating from appellations that first produced them. But nothing can make us more interested in what you're doing than witnessing the passion and verve that all Australian winemakers possess as you show us what this new part of the wine industry is capable of accomplishing, and while you search for your own expression of Tempranillo or Fiano or whatever. That's pretty infectious stuff, and if you keep showing us that energy and curiosity and that passion, we'll follow you anywhere you want to take us. Thanks very much.
In the different glasses. The first is the 2015 La Prova Fiano from the Adelaide Hills, and the second is the 2015 Mayford Tempranillo from Alpine Valleys. We're all particularly fond of these wines. I think they're lovely examples of their variety. And for me, coming off of the last couple of days of judging, it was interesting with these two varieties, the way that we have brackets divided into light, crisp, crunchy examples and richer, more textured examples. And likewise with Tempranillo, those bright and juicy examples, and then those that are more structured. There were certainly arguments for and against both of those choices, and certainly interesting to think about the way that region influences those choices. So we've chosen two wines that have somewhere in the middle, that Fiano that has a little bit of lees contact, lots of textures, very varietal, and I think one of Australia's best Tempranillos that has lots of intensity but liveliness from that cool climate also.
Okay. So when you're speaking about the two different styles of the Fiano as well, we've got this wonderful little app which is a wine glass guide, and it will point you in the direction of what glass that you should be using for the varietal of wine. And when I looked at Fiano, because it's not a wine that I have a lot to do with normally, the glass that was recommended is actually our Chablis glass. So feeling a little bit unsure because I felt that it should go into our glass number 4, which is our Oak Chardonnay or our Montrachet glass. I gave Leanne a call and visited her at the restaurant, and we did the comparison ourselves and both felt that glass number 4 is what this particular Fiano should be talking about.
So the first thing is, of course we know, when we're here at the Alternative Variety Show, that brands, and if you want to call a grape variety a brand, we've done the research, you can really interchange them. So bigger brands, if you want to call them wine brands or soft drink brands, why do they differ from small brands? They actually differ because of the number of buyers. It's not that I I know we talk about niche brands, we talk about repeat buying. Yes, I only buy this. It actually, in terms across a population of shoppers, it just doesn't work. Big brands are bought by more people, that's penetration, but the number of people who rebuy your brand is only slightly higher for a big brand than a small brand. So if you're a small brand and you want to grow, the only way to do it is to get more customers, not to sell lots and lots and lots to the same customers. Yes, your mailing lists and all that are important. You need to keep up with that, but if you don't add new customers, you're not going to be able to sell more wine. One other thing about loyal customers, if you look at this was across 15 different product categories. The top 20% of your customers are the heavy group. They buy 50-60% of your wines. That's quite important and good to keep up with them. But when we measure people year on year, the next year, half of that 50% aren't going to be there as heavy buyers. They might be buying your brand, but they're not there as heavy buyers. So it just says heavy buyers are important, but you've got to keep getting that single sale, that first sale to someone who maybe's never tried your wine or tried your brand or tried that great variety before. So trying for that different, some of the speakers have talked about being exotic, trying to be different, trying to get people's sense of mystery and all that. I think that's really some of the things we have to do.
What I'm interested in, and I'm sorry I don't have a slide, it's a miss because I thought, oh, this would help right now. Because he's got a series of labels that are quite classic cream coloured for your single sub-regional wines from the Barossa.
Yep.
Then these outlandish wines that definitely depict your personality. Defying everything that Larry said before, have people perhaps started, your buyers bought the Barossa stuff, then came to you, to your Italian varieties or Spanish varieties as a result, or vice versa?
I would love to be able to answer that, but I can't, to be honest. I say that from a point of view of, I think we're starting to learn a bit more. It was just until very recently, 2 years ago, it was just the two of us and our bookkeeper. Then, 2 years ago, we finally opened the cellar door, Home the Brave Wine and Tapas Room, as we call it, and I think we're starting to get a better understanding of our customers daily that are coming in and that connection. But what I have found over that journey is that people have fell in love with one wine and go, oh yeah, that's really cool, and then sometimes they've actually discovered another one of our wines without knowing it, and then suddenly the light bulb's gone on. It's, oh, this is you, and then that's intrigued them to find something else. So anecdotally, that has happened. But I think we're sort of learning more about how people, I suppose, interact with our brand. Now that we have a home